share a little bit of the characteristics or share a story about their student?
We just listed
I just listed, that's fine. What do you got?
characteristics of things that we've seen in the past.
What do you got, Chris?
So we pointed out that these students are obviously bright and take things seriously. They can also take things very literally. Sometimes they like to work alone. They can be eccentric. They're always on the go. And sometimes they may lack a little social skill. Sometimes they can overanalyze, and obviously they tend to be a little sensitive.
Okay, anything else? No.
He has a lot of questions,
Okay.
observant,
Okay.
creative problem solvers, and at the bottom.
All right.
I've seen kind of two extremes of the spectrum, where I've seen like either very organized, very hyper focused, and then I've also seen very, very disorganized and ADD, and they are it's just as brilliant, like both are brilliant, and I just think that's interesting.
Yeah.
And just to add to that, socially, I've seen both sides of it, where they're completely introverted and socially awkward, and don't know how to connect with the other kids. And then I've had the other side of it, where they're very social, very outspoken, very
Take charge.
the alpha male and the whole thing. But I've seen both ends, just like academically, socially, same thing.
So it's interesting that, you've mentioned you've seen both ends. You mentioned the word sometimes. I mean, gifted learners can look so different in your classroom, and they can even look different personally from year to year as they go along. And I think it's really interesting that not too many groups mention, solely intelligence or being bright or getting straight A's or anything like that. And it's throughout history, we've created tests for intelligence before we've ever been able to figure out what intelligence really is. And I think that's one of my favorite things about gifted ed, is that there's no definition of what it means to be gifted. There's suggestions made by lots of very important groups and individuals. The Columbus Group has one talking about asynchronous development, where you have students who are, very, very developed academically, but not so much socially, or vice versa. Then you have, the mindset of thinkers like Joe Renzulli, who believes that, enrichment for all, a rising tide lifts all ships, that all students deserve a chance to be recognized and have opportunities in their schools. And then you head over to the College of William & Mary with Joyce Van Tassel-Basca, who considers, there are extremely brilliant individuals in our classrooms, and they need, if we are not going to accelerate them through to higher grade levels, we need to make sure that we're providing them with appropriate curriculum for them within their classroom. And here in Millstone, we kind of took what we liked from everybody and kind of made our own philosophy and our own mission and our own definition. Years ago, we created the Gifted and Talented Committee. We didn't have much of a gifted program or any gifted program prior to that. We developed a Gifted and Talented Committee. We went through research, and we kind of developed what we wanted our program to look like at the time, what we wanted our program to look like 5 years, and what we wanted our program to look like 10 years down the road. And it's constantly shifting and constantly evolving. I mean, Dan and I were just sitting down on Monday discussing identification. As our program is changing, we need to change our identification process, or we like to say it's our participation process. Where do the students fit in with the programs and services that we offer here? So one thing that was brought up that we look for in our identification, and I don't know if you can read that, it's kind of small, but again, it's on my website, so anytime you can go back and check it out. There's kind of a few different types of learners. We have the bright children, the ones who get all A's, they kind of play school well. They're the ones that are very often turned to. They're helpers in the classroom, they listen, they follow the rules, they're very bright, they excel academically, they've got great social skills. Those are our high achievers or our very bright students. Okay? They could be gifted, but not necessarily. Then you have gifted learners who may think outside the box. They may not follow the rules. They may challenge your authority a little bit. They could also be bright. They could also be gifted. And then there's creative thinkers. And those are the ones who, they don't forget about fitting inside a box. They don't even see a box. What box are you talking about? And they could have gifted traits as well as high achieving traits, So gifted learner could look so different. And that's why the program that we've created in Millstone has lots of different levels. So one of the things that we do in our participation or identification process is we go for parent input. And at first when you mentioned that you're asking the parents if their child is gifted or not, you're thinking, whoa, that's opening up a can of worms, but it's really not. I mean, those of you that are parents, you know your child better than anybody else does. You know, and it's not this huge wave or influx of parent input forms that we're getting. It's parents who truly believe that their child has gifts and talents that they need to have blossom and develop. So we have parent input, and we take that very seriously. One of my favorite parts of the identification and participation process is reading through those parent input forms. I learned that there are students who have completed individual research projects on blood plasmas, or students who have created their own website and their own foundation to raise money for the local animal shelter. Things that we would never know as teachers because we don't have the opportunity for them to necessarily showcase those in the classroom. I mean, that's not a bad thing that we don't have the opportunity for them in the classroom because you have other things to do. But these students are so multifaceted. There's so many interesting things that are going on in their lives that we just don't know about. So that parent input form, I take it very seriously. I take it to heart, and it's one of the best parts of the whole identification/participation process. We take input from parents. We also take input from teachers. I like to know, where are the students in your classroom? Do they fall on the bright side? Do they fall on the gifted side? Do they have leadership traits? Do they have cognitive traits that stand out above the rest of the students in your classroom? Would you recommend them for the program? And one of the toughest things that a lot of teachers have, they say, well, what do you do? You know, I want to recommend him, but I don't know if he fits in with the programming that you have. So Dan and I kind of over the years have created this spectrum of choices for our students to participate in that kind of hits all different areas. So we have parent input, we have teacher input in our participation process. We also look at COGAT scores in 3rd grade. Now, COGAT test is a little different from other standardized tests that you may have come encountered with. A lot of times they're achievement tests, like the New Jersey Ask was an achievement test. It measures what the students know, whereas the cognitive abilities test measures what the students can do with information that's presented to them. So they're presented with words that could be made up. They're presented with number puzzles with missing information. They're presented with figures that they have to figure out what they would look like when they're unfolded. It's how their mind works, not what they know. So we use the cognitive abilities test, and it measures 3 different areas: verbal, it measures quantitative or the math, as well as that spatial. And that spatial side is very important because prior to having Tom come in and working with STEAM in the district, we didn't do much to nurture those students, their spatial senses, their engineering spirits, their inventing spirits. We didn't have much in our classrooms or in our school district to really make sure that we were nurturing that. So that's one of the parts of the program. I know Dan has a lot of the spatial students right now because they're building robots, right?
They're building prototype hands.
It's pretty fascinating.
In 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade.
Pretty cool.
Which is pretty cool. And they've got some really crazy designs that I gave them a piece of paper and said, here are the materials that you're going to have. Let's look at the structure of the human hand compared to images of robot hands and the things that other people have included. Now using like very, very basic materials like ribbon, popsicle sticks, tape, and rubber bands. And I might give them paper clips. Can you make a functional finger prototype that you could then replicate and then attach to like a cardboard palm and be able to control the movement of individual fingers from like the base of the hand? And they've got designs that I've looked at, and in my head I'm saying, yeah, that'll work. Some of them, before giving them the challenge and telling them what they were doing, I built one myself using the same materials just to prove that it could be done for my own set gratification. And
Really just wanted to build.
well, yeah, that's a huge part of it. But a lot of the kids, like without giving them any information about the one that I built or how I built it or anything really, they were describing exactly what I did at my desk hours beforehand. And it's really amazing to see like how they can look at materials that have not been altered and then taking them into a concept in their brains and like breaking them down, taking them into pieces, tearing them apart without ever actually touching them, and then putting them back together and drawing up diagrams of what exactly they would do and troubleshooting it before ever even touching the materials. Like they haven't done anything other than draw them and discuss what they're going to do. And I can already see that they're going to work, which is, it blows you away.
And they're third graders.
Yeah.
Third, fourth, and fifth.
I have third, fourth, and fifth, and yeah, the third graders are doing it just like the fifth graders, which is, it's really, really cool seeing what they can do and how they take the information and turn it into something completely different without, like, all in their brains. Just knowing, like, okay, if I do this, it's going to do this, and I should be able to do that based on the properties of these materials and how I think they're going to work together. I had a third grader that was devising a pulley system made out of tape and string, so that she could wrap the ribbon around it so that when she pulled it, it would have something to spin on. And she was talking about rolling up the tape around the piece of ribbon and creating like a wheel so that when she pulled the string, it would have something to like act as a hinge. And it's really cool. It's really, really cool.
So with our identification process, we're looking for kids, well, we're looking for more than just that, but one of the aspects that we're looking for is kids who are very spatially inclined. You know, and they may not be the ones that get straight A's. I've had teachers come to me in the past and say, you know, why is he in the program? He doesn't do anything in my classroom. But you gotta see what he does in mine. You gotta see what he does in dance.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, it's quite exceptional what these students are able to do when you give them the opportunity. And I always treat, I mean, gifted education is not a reward. You know, it's not something the student gets to come to gifted because they finished everything in their classroom. They come to gifted because that's what their needs are. Just as I wouldn't take a student out of a special education classroom just because, you know, they weren't, you know, you're not behaving so you don't get to go to reading today. You know, to me, it's the same. And in many states, I mean, New Jersey is one of the few states who not only does not fund gifted ed, but we don't really have any laws pertaining gifted ed. We only have policy to follow. But in many states, you know, gifted ed falls under the special education spectrum. You know, and then you include levels of service, the same way that you would do for, you know, any special education services or special education students that you have. So the students that we're looking for, we kind of take all the information that we can, and we're toying around with the idea of adding in student interviews as well this year for participation, because a lot of times the students, they know themselves pretty well as well. You know, if there's something they're interested in, they may know that we don't. As well as having them hand in some sort of a product that they've created, like I mentioned before, a website they've developed, or an independent research project that they built. I mean, and these are, the blood plasma paper research that they did was a kindergarten first grader when I found out information about that, and I said, no way. And he brought it in, and it was mostly pictures and words, but he went and got the information himself. He interviewed people. I mean, that shows initiative, that shows self-direction, that's a student who can accomplish great things as long as he's encouraged and nurtured throughout the schooling process, as long as he's not kind of given a chance to fall between the cracks and kind of get lost there. So I'll talk about programming in just a minute, but going along with some of the characteristics that we were talking about before, I have a video, and I don't know, I hope this sounds good. It's a pretty song, but it's one of my favorite videos. I like to show this to parents and to other teachers, and as well as students, and kind of talk about, you know, what your thoughts are from watching this. This was made by a 5th grade student. a little eye-opening. And if you're gonna only take one thing away from our meeting today, my hope is that you take away that the gifted children in your classroom don't look the same. And if you're ever hesitant and are not sure and you don't know if you should recommend them or hand in an input form, do it. Because there's no harm in doing it. It's very quick and simple for you to fill out. Dan and I include a lot of back doors for these students to get in and participate in the program. They may not have the highest test scores. They may not get the highest recommendation from the teacher. They may not have the best grades in the classroom, but there may be something there. Maybe you can't put your finger on it. Maybe we can't put our finger on it. Maybe they can't put their finger on it yet. But if you ever feel like there's something there in a student that you just kind of want to crack open and see what they can do, try it. You might be surprised at what comes out. I mean, I'm always extremely, the kids leave my classroom and I'm always beaming because I've learned something new every day and they amaze me every day with what they've been able to accomplish, what they haven't been able to accomplish, what they're able to tell me, the ways that they're able to open up about, how they feel about school and how they feel about where they're going and is school helping them go where they're going, or are they going to take a different path? But the one thing to take away is just a gifted child might look different than what you anticipated. Yeah.
How many kids in the district are currently in the gifted and talented?
So we do a few different things with identification. We have a lot of, I'll get into the programs in a little bit, but we have different levels of service. So there's some that are open to everybody, and any student who participates them is participating in gifted and talented. So if they want to call themselves gifted and talented, fine. We don't look to identify gifted and talented students. We're looking for gifted behaviors. I'm not a labeler. I don't feel like we should be a labeler because that kind of limits what students can be, and that becomes you're this and you're not. And to be honest, seeing as there's no nationally recognized definition of gifted, we're not sure what intelligence even is yet. Can it be grown? Is it fixed? We're not sure. So I don't feel qualified to tell a student ever, you're not gifted. Sure, I can tell them that, you do amazing things. I have no problem with that, but I don't feel qualified, and I don't know who would feel qualified saying, like, you're not gifted. You're not a gifted individual. You have no talents. Because I don't know the whole picture of the child. So to answer your question, we could have, between clubs that we offer, during lunchtime, before school, we could have hundreds of students in our district that participate in gifted and talented programming. And then we pull out for once a week enrichment. I would say that's probably about 15% of the students currently in the primary and elementary schools. And then we have students also clustered together for a different type of service to get more curriculum modifications. And they meet more often with myself, and I meet with their teachers to help create projects and whatever for them. And that's much smaller. I would say that's probably maybe 3 to 5% of the students in the district. But as a whole, for students who participate, we have 1,200 students in the district. I would say maybe 20%, 30% of our students participate in gifted and talented programming. And I have no problem with them saying, oh, I'm gifted and talented, because they are. And when they come, I say, thanks for coming today. Yeah.
So Michelle, you say that you have programming specifically for primary and elementary. So, and then they come to the middle school, does that also carry over to, how do we know, for those students, if there's no specific pullout per se for them in the middle school, how can we continue that for them if they're only going to be in the regular classroom, the regular classroom?
So we do have the advanced math classes, which I know they're working on, changing those and making sure that they're continuing through. We just changed them a couple of years ago to offer even more advanced options. The advanced language. We do have the future problem solvers in the middle school, National History Day at the middle school, and I'm working with Lori Hall to try to figure out, not necessarily pulling them out, but more working on, we have this program which we would be here till 7 o'clock if I went into Rizzoli, which is now called GoQuest. But you're able to, basically in a nutshell, you're able to create lessons and click submit, and it sends differentiated materials and lesson instructions to all your students. So your students fill out a profile, the program knows what your students enjoy, it knows what their levels are, and you create a lesson on the moon, and I click send, and it goes out to all my students, and every student could get a completely different lesson on the moon, but they're all following the same objective that I picked. But it's an engine that basically differentiates your lessons for you based on, what the students need. It's pretty phenomenal. But I'm working to get that and get that more infused into the classroom at the middle school. Because,
I had my kids use it last year.
yeah,
Yeah,
well, they changed it, they made it even better.
yeah.
There, I can't wait.
Michelle?
Yeah.
When you're talking about the middle school, I'm sorry, I forget his name.
Dan.
What you're doing for students there, that is, I can't even tell you how many special ed students will flourish in the room. like that.
We have quite a few special students who are
Kids
special ed
and
in our
gifted,
program.
often gifted,
Yeah.
but they think, some of them have ADHD and need to move, others are dyslexic and they see things really differently.
Oh, yeah.
Something like that at the middle school would
We're working to get more electives kind of infuse them more. I know this year was like the trial year to see, a couple different electives. There's a couple different ideas that I have, and I know Scott has some ideas, so we're hoping to push them together to have more options for the students during the day, to have more choice and allow them to choose where they want to be. And we would have options like that available for all the students to participate in if they were interested. Because I agree, it's interesting. Again, going along with how teachers say, why is he in your classroom? He's classified, doesn't do anything, he can't read, he can't write. But again, in my room, he builds, and that's his strength, and they flourish. It's fantastic. It really is.
teaching them.
The way they learn, exactly.
It's like saying, an illiterate soccer player isn't gifted because they can't read or write, but
Right.
if you're a professional soccer player, obviously you're doing something right.
Mhm.
It's fantastic.
Anything else?
I just want to interject, because I'm sitting here thinking, Cherie and Jackie, you're probably taking all this in, thinking how many kids have been brought through INRS and then recommended to CST, right? Because they can't learn the way I'm teaching in the classroom. So when I